Hello and welcome to what is the final WPLDN of 2020. Diane, Paul, thank you so much for joining me this evening.
Good evening.
Excellent. Look at that. We went live without an issue.
I know, and no Leo to hold our hands. So, you know, the training wheels are off.
Absolutely. Excellent. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. Just a couple of things to make you aware of. If you are on live.bigorangeheart.org, we've got a live chat going on. Feel free to use that to connect with the community. Feel free to have conversations around what's going on this evening. If you are out on social, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, LinkedIn, wherever else we are at the moment, feel free to drop in questions and comments in the chats there. We will try and monitor those, and we will try and bring those up as we go, bring up the conversations that are happening elsewhere as we go on into the evening. I should probably have some slides up, really, shouldn't I? There we go.
It's the last one of the year.
Absolutely.
We'll all be in our pajamas before the end.
I'm already in half my pajamas. There's a couple of things just on live.bigorangeheart.org. If you're there, you've got the option, if you want to, you can update your profile. So if you could head over to my profile, you can drop in a link to your website. If people then click on your name in the live chat, that will link through to your website. We have just got a couple of announcements and bits to go through, community announcements, various sponsors, bits and pieces to talk about first. I just wanted to say a very big thank you to all of our volunteers that make up the team of Big Orange Heart. Particularly on screen with me right now, Diane and Paul, thank you very much. But there's also a team that sit behind the scenes that enable us to do all of this. And I think seeing as we have kind of reached out into that international vibe in terms of within WPLDN, maybe say a big thank you to everybody just in support of Thanksgiving for today. For
Yes.
our US counterparts. So your host this evening, myself, I'm Dan Maybe. I'm the founder of Big Orange Heart. I do a few things in and around the community, generally keep myself rather busy in the kind of the WordPress space. Diane, do you want to just quickly introduce yourself?
Yes, hello, I'm Diane Wallace and I'm a freelance web developer specializing in custom WordPress themes and plugins.
Excellent, thank you. And Paul, do you want to have a quick...
Yep.
Hello?
Hi, I'm Paul. I run an agency in South London, Smart Digital, and also on the Big Orange Heart fundraising team.
You certainly are. Thank you very much. And Leo will be joining us a bit later on. He's actually on another event as we speak. But Leo Mindell is the founder and director of Sotic, a large-scale WordPress agency focused on the sport industry. Okay, I just want to say a big thank you to our sponsors. Our sponsors are supporting Big Orange Heart as a registered charity as a whole, and they're enabling us to be able to deliver these events. But instead of listening to me ramble on through talking about our sponsors, you can listen to me rambling through a nice little video. Passionate about making the web a better place. Automatic.com. Your managed cloud hosting platform. Cloudways.com. Generate more leads for your digital agency. Funnelpacks.com. The WordPress multilingual plugin. Weglot.com. Tips, tricks and resources for people who use WordPress. WinningWP.com. The search engine optimization plugin for WordPress. Yoast.com. Hey, look at that. We've got fancy pants going on there.
So, yeah, it is fancy pants, isn't it? We're so polished now.
It's only taken nearly a year, but we get there.
Guys, can I just say we're only 8 minutes in? Can we just... Let's not try and peak too early, eh? Things could still go wrong yet.
Please help
Paul,
us,
sending out those bad vibes now.
The bad juju. Nope, you can't have that. Please help us. Let's get back on track here. Please help us say a big thank you to our sponsors, Automatic Cloudways, Funnel Packs, Weednot, Winning WP, and Yoast. We've created a nice little URL there for you, big.ht/thanks. If you drop that into your browser right now, open up a new tab, provided you're logged into Twitter, that'll form a nice little tweet just to say thank you to all of our sponsors. It really does help us, raise awareness of what we're doing, raise awareness of Big Orange Heart as a charity. Within our what we're doing to support the community from a well-being and mental health perspective, and these companies are enabling us to do that. So we would really appreciate it if you could say a big thank you to all of them. Just want to say a quick thank you to our supporters. These are companies that have given time this evening to enable this event to happen: Blue 37, Pool Smart, and Sotic. So on to tonight, I suppose it is tonight, but we are also an international audience, so let's say today. We've got Mike Killen. Mike will be helping us to increase the revenue of our WordPress-focused businesses. Who doesn't want that? And then second session, you're stuck with us. it's a us overload tonight. We're trying something a little bit different. If you were in the chat, I did mention it. If you weren't in the chat with us in the social just now, just very quickly want to mention the second session. We're going to run a round table talking about virtual events and virtual events within the WordPress space. And we'd love to hear your thoughts on it, you, the community. What we're actually going to do is, if you're in live.bigorangeheart.org, we're going to open up the opportunity for you to come and join us here on stage this evening. Just come in for a couple of minutes, share your thoughts, your experiences, your ideas around virtual events, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You don't have to turn your camera on. If you just, if you're in an environment where you don't want to share your background, feel free. You can turn your camera off, and it would just be good to hear you. We want to try and create that kind of interactive style session. So if you're interested, have a think about it. If you've got any experiences, anecdotes, anything that you want to share about virtual events, then we'd love to hear from you. What we will do is, in live.bigorangeheart.org, in the live chat, we can DM you a link which will get you into this stage here, so we can bring you up on screen. So looking forward to that one, but I'm particularly looking forward to hearing from Mike as well. He's always got some incredible nuggets of gold to share with us. But before we get into that, community announcements time. This opportunity, if you're aware of anything that's going on in and around the community, to just let us know. So again, if you're in live.bigorangeheart.org, drop it in the live chat there. We'll be sure to get it shared on screen here. So if you're aware if there's maybe any events that are going on, maybe there's some training, maybe there's some, maybe you're looking to hire at the moment, maybe you're looking to be hired. It's just an opportunity for you to share that. So whilst we wait to see if anybody shares anything with us, we do have a few things that we wanted to just share from the community announcements from our end. WordPress 5.6, a lot of work been going on across this. We've got the field guide has now been released for 5.6. The scheduled date for this final major version of WordPress for 2020 is the 8th of December. So the release candidate is out now. If you are a plugin developer, if you are a theme developer, then get this tested. Make sure that when this gets released, you're not going to have loads of support requests because something for whatever reason isn't working. There's just a few things. I don't know if Diane or Paul, have you had an opportunity to look at 5.6 yet?
No, I haven't actually.
No.
It's been a very weird couple of months. So
yes.
yeah. Likewise, this month's just run away with itself, and no, I've not had a chance to have a look at it yet.
No. I think there's some really interesting, if we look at some of the what's coming up in the release, navigation menus block in core, which is interesting. Support for PHP 8, which we'll go into a little bit more in just a moment. But one thing that I was reading, that I was looking at today actually, was the inclusion of the application password feature plugin. I don't know, have either of you had a need to test out this feature plugin yet?
No, unfortunately, no.
So
Sorry, Dan. We're making you really work hard tonight in these community announcements, aren't we?
I have had an opportunity. I have had to use this a number of times, and it's a really interesting solution. It's where you're connecting with APIs and you need to share access to the site for whatever reason. There's always that issue of do you share your master password, or do you set up a dummy user to then share that password with? This feature actually allows you to create an application specific password, so you can then share that, so it becomes effectively a single password for that application, that API call, which I think is a really interesting feature when we're looking at the security side of our API requests.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. So, as I say, that is scheduled for the 8th of December. The field guide is out and about now, so do take a look. Do head over to make.wordpress.org/core just to have a bit of a better understanding of what's going across that release. And I think we've mentioned it many times, but I think it's definitely worth another mention again, just very, very quickly on that 5.6. The fact that we've got the release squad is entirely made up of individuals that identify themselves as females. So again, another fantastic win, a fantastic milestone for 5.6. So PHP 5.8 is due for release today. It may have even been released by now. Have we all been testing for PHP 8? I'll take that as a no, shall I?
Yeah, no, I don't like me and Paul have really let the side down this month. It seems like we haven't been doing anything. I don't know what to say about that.
I have to say that I've actually been doing quite a lot, just not with WordPress 5.6 or PHP 8.
Fantastic. Well, for those of us that have had a look, I've been really fortunate actually. We've been running a lot of virtual events through Big Orange Heart, and some of those events, which we'll touch on in a moment, are very focused around the PHP community. And there's been some really interesting stuff that I've been hearing and learning about, just simply being part of those events. And the introduction of JIT. So this is the just-in-time compiler. I mean, there are definitely pros and cons in relation to this, specifically when it comes to WordPress. But the team actually over at SiteGround have done a really nice roundup in relation to specifically this just-in-time compiler and WordPress. So I definitely recommend taking a look at that if this is something that is of interest to you. But of course, if you are a plugin developer, then this is something that we need to be aware of, because there are things that potentially may impact your plugin. And as I say, the last thing we want is a pile of support requests. Okay, swiftly moving on then from PHP 8. I thought this was an interesting discussion, an interesting article from Justin in the Tavern. So Justin was talking about the issue of ownership of plugins and that change of ownership and what that process should potentially look like. And there's been a ticket in relation to this that's been opened up. You may or may not be able to see it. It's rather small on the screen there, but you've got a screenshot that suggests a potential way of flagging the fact that a plugin has changed ownership. Reading the article from Justin on Tavern, WP Tavern, was interesting because he's actually gone through this experience himself with his members plugin. It's a plugin I've certainly used many times on many sites. We do quite a lot of membership stuff. And I actually missed that he had the ownership of that plugin had changed initially. I did eventually find out through, I think it was through social. I think maybe came across it on Twitter at some point. But it raises some real points of, particularly around privacy. Suddenly the ownership of that data, where the fact that company now has access to potential access into those WordPress admins, obviously dependent on the plugin and the functionality within it. But I don't know what your thoughts are, Paul and Diane, around that issue of that change of ownership.
Yeah, I think I think that it would be really nice to flag, because I think that it is important, because a lot of the time, I mean, especially with Justin's work, I mean, a lot of the time people specifically chose Justin's plugins because kind of that it's going to be really well written, kind of sort of very respected. So even just from that point of view, kind of I think it's nice to know that it has changed ownership, because then you might want to look at kind of who's taken over and gone, yes, no, I'm happy with that developer as well, just from a coding point of view, or kind of, and also as well, what new directions, if people take over a plugin, they're going to want to eventually make it their own. You want to be able to kind of keep an eye on that. Okay, what direction are they taking this plugin in? And then as well, I mean, as you said, which didn't even occur to me, around privacy. But for me, kind of, I'd always want to know, if I was like using a plugin in a lot of projects, I would be really interested to know who's taken it over and what their plans are with it. And also, kind of like I said, kind of whether I like the way they kind of whether I have confidence in the way they code, which I'm sure, kind of that whoever's taken over Justin's plugin, I'm sure that he would have been very, kind of sort of like particular, make sure that he had confidence in the people taking the plugin over. But then you also want to be aware of who that is, because they're going to want to change it. Eventually they might have like a completely different idea of what they want this plugin to be in the future, which is quite right. If you take over a project, you want to do your own thing with it, but you have to then make sure that what they want to do with the plugin aligns with what you wanted from that plugin in the first place.
That's right, absolutely. I think Nathan's actually raised a really interesting topic here. This has been an ongoing topic, hasn't it, within the space for quite some time, around notifications and where do notifications live. We don't necessarily need to get too into that right now, but it certainly it all fits within a similar a similar issue here that we're talking about.
Absolutely, and I totally agree with everything that Diane said there. I think it's important if you've got a plugin that you're using, quite often, we as developers and stuff like that, and people doing what we're doing, running our agencies and stuff, buy into a plugin partly through the people who have written that plugin, i.e. in this case, Justin, for example. And I think it's very, very important that they do notify when a change of ownership takes place. As it is with his plugin, I think it'll all be good. And I saw that Lewis posted something in there about, say, for example, Yoast now owns the redirection plugin. Those sorts of things. I think it's important.
Duplicate pages, I think.
Oh, is it duplicate? Oh, yes. No, that's right. Yeah.
And it certainly raises this issue of there's certainly been some negative experiences in the past where we've seen companies take on a plugin and then it's been used as a promotional tool, and so there's a lot of issues across this, and of course we're not going to get to the bottom of this quick conversation, but I think there's very much a need for this conversation, this discussion.
I think and I think just with the ethos that WordPress tries to carry out, to be totally transparent as to who owns what is very, very important.
Absolutely. Okay, so just moving on quickly, I just want to quickly mention the WordPress survey, 2020 annual survey. If you haven't yet,
I've done it. That's something I have done this month.
Hey, something we could talk about. I would put the URL up on screen, but it is rather a in fact I can do that. I'm pressing, oh no I can't, I'm failing here. I'm pressing all the buttons tonight. There we go. Don't want that to scroll and get that one up on screen. There we go. Nice, short, happy, easy URL for us all to remember.
It's like typing in a barcode. You always feel sorry for them at the supermarket, isn't it, when they go
Just head over to wordpress.org. There is a banner at the top with a link. Much easier. Okay, this one. This is a little bit of a tricky subject, and we're raising this not to get focused on the political aspects of this, but I think there's a bigger issue here. WordPress.com, again, this is something that was flagged in the tavern recently, and WordPress.com has given has removed the conservative treehouse from the WordPress.com infrastructure. They've cited a TOS, terms of service violation. This, I think, is a really interesting topic that, certainly the leadership within Automatic, I guess, are having some real struggles to get over, because at the root of WordPress, as in the project, we've got to be very careful that we distinguish between .com and .org here. We are talking about democratizing publishing. And yet here we are with a platform that is enabling that, and is now having to make decisions as to around what is and isn't on that platform. I just thought it was an interesting topic to have to think about and discuss.
Yeah, we touched on this earlier, and like we said, we're not getting into the politics of this, but I was saying that, kind of uncomfortably for Automatic, for WordPress.com, kind of they've been kind of told that they have to see themselves now more as a publisher, and that means that they actually have, kind of responsibilities over the content published, which I know is something that they really didn't want. They kind of didn't want to go down that road, but because of, because of the things that have happened, they have had to do this. So although it kind of goes against kind of like what the ethos was when they first started up, I think that they now are seen as, as a publishing platform, and that means that they are going to have to, and probably more and more, I think, as time goes on, it's not just WordPress.com, kind of, but kind of even like, Twitter, as we know now, they have to comment, if like tweets are inaccurate, and even Facebook, now, before all of these platforms were like, we're not publishers, we're just providing a service, but now they've kind of been told you have like a responsibility and you are publishers. And so I think that this is inevitable, and I think we're going to see more and more of this. So
that's right. Just that it is a very, very tricky subject, and it's a very difficult, particularly when we look at. I appreciate it's difficult for all large-scale companies and small-scale companies that have the facility for content to be delivered through. But it was just that interesting issue of this democratizing publishing, and specifically that bit for Automatic that I thought was a really, really tricky area to navigate through at this stage.
I'm sure that it's something that they really didn't, I think that, they thought that this was, kind of not really what they were in it for. And I think that they've kind of found themselves, kind of like in a position that they didn't expect, Then
I guess in recent years, the landscape's changed, hasn't it? So they, and to be fair, all these platforms do have a social responsibility as well. So not going to get involved in the politics, but they do have a responsibility.
I think that we were all quite innocent maybe at one point, and thought that, kind of, and we have realized that actually, we do have to take a certain amount of responsibility in kind of in whatever we do, and that we are, kind of maybe more, we have more responsibility about the content that people put out on our platforms. That's kind of, like I said, kind of because of what happened in recent years, I think we've all kind of like woken up. I think we were all kind of quite idealistic and maybe naive.
Absolutely. Okay, so this is it's an enormous topic. We could spend a long time discussing it. But moving on from the slightly more difficult subject, shall we say, into something a little bit more uplifting, a little bit lighter. WordFest.live, WordFest Live 2021. If you aren't aware of this, if you haven't seen this, then we've got another fancy pants video just for you.
Fancy pants. That's that.
There was a little delay just as I hit that button there, and it went right over you, Diane, as you were talking.
I know. I was just saying fancy pants. That's gonna be our word of 21. I think. We're just getting so fancy here now.
Absolutely. So WordFest.live is taking place on the 22nd of January 2021. It is a 24-hour celebration of WordPress, and we would love to have you as part of this. We're going to be traveling the globe as we deliver this event. We're kicking off over in Oceania. It's going to start off at 10 a.m. AEDT. Time zones have become a big thing for me recently. Trying to call this out. We're going to spend 6 hours over in Oceania. We're then going to head over to Asia, where we will start at 10:30 a.m. IST. We'll then head over to the EMEA. We're going to start in the EMEA 11 a.m. UTC, and then we'll head over finally into the Americas, where we'll start at 12 p.m. EST. We'll spend 6 hours in each region, and we have got a whole bunch of content coming up for you. We have just announced our first batch of speakers. We have got multiple batches coming up that we're really excited to be sharing. But if we look at this list here, we've got Miriam Schwab, Joey Simpson Jr., Fatima Sarah Khalid, Chris Lemmer, Akshat Chowdhury, Tracy Apps, Nick Gulak, and Courtney A. Robertson, just as our first round. And as I said, we have got a lot more to come up. But I just wanted to ask and put this out there. One thing, if you are into live music, if you play an instrument, if you're part of a band, if you're, you play the spoons, we want to hear from you, because we're doing our best to introduce the festival element into this. And we want to get some music involved in here. We do need the music to be original. Unfortunately, because of the really complicated licensing laws in relation to music production, and the fact we're a charity, we don't have millions of dollars sitting behind us to enable us to purchase all the licenses that are needed. We do need original music, or if you're interested in just doing a jamming session of some sort, then we'd love to hear from you. You can get all that information from the WordFest.live site. Also, if you haven't got your ticket, grab it now. Tickets are free. There is an optional donation into Big Orange Heart when you make your register for your ticket, but that is entirely optional. We also have just a few sponsorship slots left as well. So if you're interested in getting involved in this, then wordfest.live/call for sponsors is the place that you need to visit. Okay.
Or if you know anyone who's interested in sponsoring, of course.
Definitely. Absolutely. We will also be putting out a call for volunteers very shortly. So as I said, this is a 24-hour event that is stretching a global community. So we want individuals that are representing the areas that we are within. So we're going to be looking for MCs. We're going to be looking for individuals with technical skills. We're going to be looking for people that can do what I'm failing at here today, which is sitting here pressing buttons behind the screen. There's a whole ream of things that you can potentially get involved in if you're interested. So we'd love to hear from you.
And there we've just had Graham pipe in, Graham Armfield, to say that he'd be interested in doing some music.
I was going to say,
and we know that Graham's very good as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, but I didn't want to put Graham on the spot, so I'm glad that he put himself forward, because I was going to go, Absolutely. I think Graham's in the audience.
Yeah.
So we'd love to get that, make that happen, Graham. Okay, so all of this is happening in support of Big Orange Heart. We've mentioned a few times this evening the Big Orange Heart is a registered charity with a mission to support and promote positive wellbeing and mental health within their remote working communities. So if you are watching this event this evening, you may notice under the video just below us, right down there, there is a button that says donate. If you are enjoying the not us, but if you're enjoying the talks, then please do feel free to make a donation. Every single penny goes directly into the charity. I'm going to really swiftly run through these because we're 10 minutes over already. We should have had Mike up on stage by now. So I just really wanted to quickly mention we are obviously maintaining our virtual events. We will be maintaining our virtual events for at least the first 6 months of 2020. So there's a great opportunity to share this message reach out to a wider global community and get people involved across WPLDN. We're also delivering multiple events through this platform. If you are on live.bigorangeheart.org right now, we've opened that platform up to other meetups. So if you are a meetup organizer, if you run events, then we are enabling this platform free of charge to you to enable your communities to come together at this time. We've got PHP London, we've got Leeds PHP, we've got DPIP. All these events are currently running through this platform. The next DPIP is actually happening on the 2nd of December. So I think that's a week yesterday, possibly. So head over to bigorangeheart.org. And if you're interested in finding out more about this platform, then drop us through the contact form, drop us a note, or even chat with us later when we're in the social. Oh, okay. I'm going to now invite Mr. Mike Killen on stage. Apologies, Mike. We've rapidly eaten into your time. There, yes.
I take full responsibility. It's me. I never know when to stop.
Unbelievable, honestly.
It's a good job that the next section is us slot, so you've got all the time that you need.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me okay? This is
We can.
All right, awesome. Well, I was going to say, like, I'm not that much. I said in the chat, I'm not that much of a diva to be like.
You diva out. You diva out. We're here for you.
Yeah, go for it. Now's your moment.
This has been outstanding, like in terms of organization and effort. You know, these have happened a lot over 2020, and I can assure I've been on a lot of these types of, both as a speaker and as an attendee. This is like another level compared to some of the other stuff that I've seen. So you guys should feel very, very proud.
We love hearing that. Thank you very much. Yes. It's not always been like this. That's
the best tenner I've ever spent.
Yeah. You take care of that invoice whenever you can.
Yeah, it's in the post, mate.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, now, so Mike, you can do a far better job of introducing you. But I just wanted to say I'm so pleased to have you with us this evening. I think you may have actually been potentially the last speaker that we had in person.
Really?
If I may have that wrong, but you were certainly at
this time last year, wasn't it?
It was about a year ago.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
Yep. And I'm really happy you're going to be giving your talk this evening. 4 methods to double the revenue of any WordPress website. And of course, who doesn't want their revenue to double? Exactly. So, Mike, thank you very much. We're going to hand the stage over to you now. We're all going to disappear and let you take the stage.
Awesome. Okay. Cheers, guys. Well, thank you so much. So my name is Mike Killen. I'm the founder of a company called Sell Your Service. And predominantly what I do is I work with marketing agencies and funnel builders to help them sell projects for 5 figures. I think the number one problem that most agencies and digital creatives suffer from is they don't really have the confidence, the ability, the resources to be able to sell the projects for the revenue that they deserve, especially that reflect the amount of experience and time and effort they put into their customer projects. Today, what I want to talk to you about is 4 methods to double the revenue on any WordPress website. Even though I work, and if you don't know what a marketing funnel is, we'll talk a bit about that. If you don't know what the hell a funnel builder would be, imagine a website that works with some email thrown in. That's basically a marketing funnel. You guys have probably seen on Facebook, like those hyped up adverts of guys driving Lamborghinis, YouTube as well, where they step out and they say, I make 6 figures every single day. All of that has become very stressful for me as someone who actually teaches legitimate businesses how to make more money, especially via their websites, because they are essentially trying to sell you a tool. They're trying to sell you a platform or a SaaS program. And the funny thing is we've been doing it and generated literally millions of dollars across multiple websites, and even for my partner's business. And we just use a regular WordPress site, and it always kind of staggered me about all these different platforms out there. And there's dozens of them. You'll all know what they are, and they predominantly run off affiliate marketing as well, which is nothing wrong with that. But there's a lot of platforms out there, and I was always saying to my customers, like, well, you don't need to buy that. If you already bought one, great. But the reality is you can do a lot of this stuff with the WordPress tools that are out there. So what I want to do is share with you the overall strategy of increasing revenue on any website. So if you can do this for your customer's website, they'll pay you gladly and handsomely for it. And it also kind of makes you look like a bit of a rock star. The interesting thing about this is that it doesn't matter if you're a developer, designer, graphic designer, marketer. None of this stuff is like next level marketing. It's all pretty simple, and it's basically not even trying to increase some numbers by a huge amount. If you can help your customers generate more revenue, they'll love you for it. A lot of websites can reach a bit of a revenue plateau whereby they stop generating money. And if you were able to say, well, we could actually double the amount of revenue that your website generates within a year, that to me is a huge milestone. It sounds insane, but like I said, it's the process of getting there that's actually quite simple. But a lot of the time you will be pitched and sold platforms, copy paste templates, systems, all this kind of stuff. And the reality is it doesn't work. As someone who has bought this stuff and tests it and has a team of people constantly buying this stuff and testing it, I can tell you that the tool is one thing, but it's the actual strategy and the understanding behind it. We are going to be doing a little bit of maths, so I apologize if maths isn't your strong suit, but maths isn't my strong suit either. But hopefully you'll see actually that a website can be broken down into pretty much 4 categories of where you're going to generate money. And then, of course, I'm going to say, here's how you do it with a regular WordPress website. No fancy platforms needed, no subscriptions necessarily. And I'm going to mention a couple of plugins that I don't necessarily have like an affinity to, but I do like using. I want to talk about, to start with, something called transaction density, which unsurprisingly, I'm not invited to that many dinner parties anymore. Outside of social distancing, when people ask me like, oh, Mike, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I really want to talk to you about something called transaction density. All of a sudden, they're not really that interested anymore. Transaction density is actually a very simple process of understanding the amount of money that you can kind of pack into a website. It's a really simple model. It sounds like marketing jargon, but stick with me and I'm going to show you. When you understand that this model is how businesses make money, especially websites, you start to think, well, there's loads of different levers that we can pull on. Because it's transaction density, we don't just have an x-axis and a y-axis, we actually have a z-axis as well, so it's kind of 3-dimensional. If this is purchases on the top here, and this is time, ultimately, as time goes on, we want to increase, I'll get a different color here, we want to increase the number of sales we make. So that would be pretty standard, pretty stable, and therefore we want the number of purchases over time to go up. And the quicker you can make this line go up, the more money you're making, right? That's the X and the Y. This is the individual number of purchases that are made per website. If you make 100 sales a day, that is 100 individual sales. What if instead you could then take each one of those sales and multiply it? So you say not only how many sales an individual customer makes, but the value of that sale and how many sales you have as well. So you have a 3-way 3D kind of process. And that's where you get this density, where you begin to stack this line one on top of the other. What I want you to do is, if you're thinking about doing this in real time, you can do, and there's some quite simple numbers that you can start to look up. Really basically, what we're looking at is the frequency of sales. And this is the frequency of sales per day, per month, per year, whatever, over a period of time. For in this particular example, I'm going to say per day. We're then going to look at the frequency of sales per customer. businesses like Netflix understood that it's one thing to get someone to rent a DVD. It's another thing to get someone to rent a DVD every single month. Frequency of sales per customer, commonly referred to as like similar to a subscription model. It doesn't have to be a subscription model. I'm not just going to tell you just start charging per month. But getting someone to buy once is one thing. Getting someone to buy 12 times or 52 times or 365 times is a very different method. It's also much cheaper. We then also have what we call our average order value. So this is the actual amount that someone would spend on the website. A really easy example of this is McDonald's. These guys have absolutely smashed transaction density out of the park. You go up and you say, I want to get whatever, a Big Mac, and they say, great, would you like that large? So the first thing they're doing is they're increasing the average order value. That's the first thing they're doing. The first thing before you've even confirmed the order is, would you like to increase the amount of money that you're spending with us? Amazon does this as well by offering you extra products and services throughout the checkout process. All of this increases the average order value. And when you start understanding how you can increase the average order value, it starts to make more sense to think, well, actually, we can increase revenue from the website. We don't really have to change that much. I'm going to show you a couple of little hacks that we've employed across pretty much every website that we've worked on that have massively changed revenue. And for the sake of like a couple of check boxes, and it's actually made customers happier because we've helped them further. So those are the three areas that we're looking at. Frequency of sales per day or over a period of time, the frequency of sales per customer, and then the average order value. We're going to go into some numbers because I want to show you the maths of how you double the revenue on a website. What most marketers will try and do is they will double the amount of traffic that comes to a website. That's 99% of people's approach. There's nothing wrong with that, but doubling the amount of traffic that goes to a website in a year is a big ask. So I'm going to use that a similar kind of example. We're going to use some really simple numbers as well. It's like I said, maths isn't my thing either. Let's say that you have a website, let's stand this side, that generates $100,000, that's a bad habit, apologies, pounds, there we go, £100,000. This shape here, commonly referred to as a funnel. Whenever I give this kind of talk anywhere else, all I do is talk about marketing funnels day in, day out, and I sort of jokingly say, no, I don't really know what to call this shape, hoping that that translates into a joke, but it doesn't often translate, and people often shout, oh, it's a funnel, Mike. I'm like, oh, that's very sweet of you. Thank you for correcting me on that. But anyway, this is a funnel. And at the top here, this is basically how our website turns people into customers. We have traffic up the top. We then have leads. We then have what we call a conversion rate, which is the number of customers. So we have our customers. And in the middle there, we have a percentage conversion rate. And then we have what we mentioned earlier, the frequency of sales. So this is the number of sales that each customer makes. Sales per customer. And at the end, we basically have our revenue. Let's say that we start with 1,000 leads. Now, even if whatever type of business you're running or whatever type of website your customers are running, they have leads. It might not be a database. Hopefully, they've got an email database and that they're utilizing that. But it could be subscribers. It could be people that buy. It could be just a Rolodex that they've got. We want to start understanding, well, how many leads or inquiries does our website generate? For some businesses, they will generate 12 inquiries or prospects per year. Some of them will do 12 inquiries or prospects per hour or per minute. It's up to you to define what you think a lead is. I would like to say it's you've got someone's contact information and they've demonstrated interest in a product. So they've demonstrated that they're interested in working with you, and then there's a method of following up with them later. So that's a lead, and we're going to talk about how we can increase this. We then have a number of customers. So in this particular example, I'm going to say we have 50 customers. So that's 50 different people have bought a product from this website, which gives us a conversion rate of 5% or 0.05. And then we look at sales per customer. and maybe each customer buys twice, and let's say that this is over the period of a year. So again, we say the frequency of sales is per day, but in this particular case, we're going to say all of this happens over 1 year. If this is already becoming a bit overwhelming, I apologize, but I promise you this is all going to come together. All you need to figure out, and the reason I like to do it over a year is because you get enough data, but you can also basically go into your analytics, you can go into your bank balance, you can go into your shopping cart, you can go into whatever software you use and say, over the past year, how many sales did we make per customer, or how many customers we've got and how often did they buy, and you're just getting averages. And then we want to look at our average order value, and let's say in this particular case, it's $1,000. Or more likely, well, it's actually $500 because each one of them is buying twice, but we'll come on to that later. So if 50 customers buy twice, that gives us 100 sales essentially, and 100 sales times $1,000 is 100,000. This is presuming that you've got some averages throughout the year. A really easy way to understand your average order value, which by the way, every website needs to understand their average order value. It's like the #1 metric they need to figure out, is take all of the customers that you've got, look at all of the revenue that you've got, and divide the amount of revenue by the amount of customers, and that will give you an average order value. The reason this is important is because you want to understand, well, how much is one person buying, or how much is one person buying per transaction. What most marketers will do, frankly, guys like me, is we'll say, let's just double the amount of leads we've got. So let's go to 2,000 leads. We'll keep it at a 5% conversion rate across the board, which still gives us 100 customers. They'll still be using 2 sales, and we'll keep it at the average order value of $1,000. This then gives us $200,000. If people have questions, presumably I will be asked them by someone. I'm happy to have questions thrown at me at any point, by the way. And if anyone wants to check my maths, that's fine with me as well. The problem is that doubling the number of leads that you get is a huge ask. As someone who does this day in, day out, just going from 1,000 to 2,000 leads, doubling the amount of leads you get, is a huge amount of a huge investment. So what we want to do is actually find different areas that we can increase by a lesser amount. If we find 4 areas that we can just increase by 25%, what that's going to allow us is a 100% increase across the board. It's actually going to generate a little bit more than double, but it means that we don't have to put all of our effort and all of our eggs into generating more leads. That's what most people will try and do, is just say, let's just try and generate more leads. When in actual fact, what I want to do is I want to increase the number of leads. I want to increase the number of customers who buy, the individual people. I want to increase the frequency at which they buy, and I want to increase the average order value. So if instead, rather than just doubling it or timesing it by 2, if instead, let me wipe this off the board here, I actually just increase it. So that would be 100% increase. Can you guys see that okay? Yeah, just about. I'm going to increase it by 25%, and the 4 areas that I'm going to increase by 25%, which is not a huge amount, 25% is doable, right? To double anything is a huge ask. To double the revenue is massive. If your business or a website generates 5% growth, you are in the top 5% of businesses per year. So that's just 5%. To do 20% is something like the top 1%. To double it is like the top 10th of 1% of growth. It's a huge ask, but you can double revenue without necessarily having to double just one aspect of this. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to increase the number of leads by 25%, which gives us 1,250 leads. So to go from 1,000 leads a year, if that's what your website is currently doing, and again, you'll go back and you'll have a look at the website and says it does 100 leads or it does 10 leads, that's fine. We're just going to try and increase them by 25. So that'll give us 1,250. Rather than just saying, oh, I'm going to increase this by 25%, what I actually want to do is work on this conversion rate here between leads to customers. So this is basically inquiries to people who have actually given you money. I want to increase not just the number, because if I increase just the number, it still sticks at the same conversion rate. We want to be slightly smarter and just increase that conversion rate by 25%, which gives us a 6.2% 6.25% conversion rate, which gives us, out of this many leads, 78 customers. So hopefully you're beginning to see here that by increasing things by 25% across the board, we're actually beginning to stack up the number of opportunities that we have to make money. So that gives us, instead of 50 customers, gives us 78 customers. Going from 5% to 6.25%, not a huge jump. That's a pretty easy and doable thing. The next thing I want to do is increase the number of times each customer buys from us. So let's say they buy, it's like this perfect business model where we can predict everything. They buy in January and they buy in June. They buy in 6-month blocks, right? Maybe they're like Brita filters and they know they're going to run out in 6 months' time. So they buy one load of Brita filters in January and one load of Brita filters in June or July, 6 months later. But all we're going to do is increase this to 2.25 times. I know it's impossible for someone to buy a quarter. We're just looking at the individuals, and this is all going to average out. Of course, your numbers won't be as clean as this to start with, but all we want to do is try to increase our leads, our conversion percentage, the number of sales that they make, or the average number of times, the frequency at which they buy, and the last one is the average order value as well, which has been shown to be, of all of these, actually the most effective. So we're not going to necessarily, you could just increase the price. Like, who'd have known that if you increase the price by 25%, you will make 25% more. Or, as I'm going to talk about later, you can talk about immediately offering different kinds of products. So we've got our leads now. We've got our conversion rate, which gives us a number of customers. We've got the number of sales per customer as an average, and our average order value, all of which have gone up by 25%. And if you do the maths on this, as in 1,250 by 78, this works out to be roughly, I think it's 219,000, 218,000, 220,000. I'm sure someone will let me know that my maths is way off on that. Can you guys see that okay? That says 2.25 sales. We'll shift it down a bit. There we go. That's the 2.25. Cool. Immediately, what I know there's a bit of a delay. If anyone's got any questions around the maths of this, please, we'll go over that. We can either go over it now if you get them in or not. So it's all well and good of me saying, just increase the number of leads you generate, just increase your conversion rates to customers, just increase your sales, just increase your average order value, right? That sounds pretty dumb, pretty obvious. I'm actually going to show you how we do this with a WordPress site without needing any kind of crazy marketing platforms or expensive subscriptions. So most websites look a little bit like this. They're beautifully designed. You guys have taken care of them. They look absolutely stunning. We have our home page here. And then we have a bunch of different traffic from Google. We have a bunch of different traffic from emails and referrals. We've got the socials, and we got YouTube as well. And all of this drives traffic to the homepage. And most businesses have some kind of, contact or inquiry page where they say, get in contact with us, give us your name, give us your information, give us your details, give us a message. What do you want to know from us? I'm not saying get rid of that at all. I would wager that 99% of businesses don't do anything with this information. They just have it come in, they have it sit in their inbox, and they go, okay, yeah, let's go ahead and ignore that, which is the number one thing I see most of the time. A friend of mine runs a translation company, and he was trying to get marketing executives to get back to him, marketing companies, and he was like, I must have filled out 20 contact forms saying I want to work with you, and no one got back to me. So let's assume that you've got some kind of contact form, and that's how you're generating leads. So if you are generating 1,000 inquiries a year, or even if you're generating 10 inquiries a year, this here, frankly, is not good enough. There's two methods to be able to increase. If you remember, we had this conversion rate. So we had leads. We had our actual conversion rate, which gave us a number of customers. And then we had the average number of sales per customer. And then we had our average order value. The leads at the top here are just being generated as they are. They are currently being generated through whatever method seems to be working. As soon as, sorry, the reason I'm hesitating is because in previous talks when I've done this, I've actually had people yell out, but I actually don't have to worry about that. So you guys can yell at me later virtually. The amount of businesses who would massively benefit from having a very basic pop-up opt-in. And I know people talk about GDPR and we should be sharing data and stuff like this. There's no evidence to suggest that saying, oh, please tick this box to comply, to receive emails from us. Doesn't affect conversion rates, doesn't affect, in fact, if anything, we've seen actually conversion rates go up. We all go to websites now and we're just bombarded with, please accept this, please accept this, please accept this. We just click it. These kind of pop-up opt-ins just across the website, if you think about the amount of traffic that you're getting to start with, let's say that you get 10,000 visitors per year and you convert 10% of them across the board, that's your 1,000 leads right there. People say that they hate opt-ins and pop-ups. Ours convert at roughly 5%. That's completely coincidental to the 5% I was talking about earlier, because that was our leads to customer conversion rate. This is our traffic to lead conversion rate. Every single business in the world benefits from having some kind of pop-up opt-in. It doesn't just say join our newsletter, it gives away something of value. It gives away a lead magnet, it gives away like a resource or a PDF or a video or some training or a guide or a cheat sheet or something. The method that I use is with Opt-in Monster. That's my preferred go-to supplier, but most page builders do this now. This is not necessarily to say that as soon as someone lands on your site, immediately throw a pop-up at them. That annoys me. And while you might not like it, you are not the customer. What we are looking for is people who are visiting the site. They've already demonstrated that they're interested in what the site has got to say. We want to look for motivated individuals and say to them, hey, if you're willing to take this next step, if you're willing to take it further, we've got an offer for you. If you think it's annoying being overly pitched and having someone walk around, like we've all been into shops before. We used to, at least a year ago. You remember that when you go shopping? And you have the assistant say, oh, if there's anything I can help with, just let me know. We all say, oh, that's really annoying. Do you know what's more annoying? Having no one approach you. It's infuriating when you walk into a shop, you're ready to buy, and we've all experienced this, and I can assure you it's way more infuriating. You're ready to buy whatever it is, and there's no staff around to help you. That's 100 times more frustrating. So yeah, for the sake of your individual idea saying, I'm not too sure about this, just test it. Test the idea of putting pop-ups on the website, see how many new leads you generate. And another one is a really simple, nice and easy squeeze page, also sometimes called a landing page or an opt-in page. This is specifically designed to say, again, it's similar messaging to the pop-up. It says, give us your email address and your name. We will send you this free report, cheat sheet, guide, list, hacks, training, PDFs, downloads, whatever. Doesn't really matter. We can talk about that later. And then this can generate anywhere. I mean, ours generates something like 65% conversions, but obviously I've been doing that for a while. Even if it did 30%, you would then have something which is specifically designed to capture leads. So many businesses say, oh, we need more leads, we need more leads, we need more leads. Number one thing, we need more leads. And all they've got is a contact form. They're not actively saying to their customers or to the people who visit the site, we are willing to take your information and we will take care of the marketing process. It's very difficult to try and buy something when someone doesn't want to sell it to you. This demonstrates that you are ready and willing to help anyone who comes to the website. So that's the first thing we can start doing to increase our leads. As I mentioned, I use Opt-in Monster. There's tons of them available. The only reason I'm with Opt-in Monster because I've been with them for so long. Page builders even have this kind of software built into them now. So you don't need to buy anything expensive for that. The problem, though, is that as soon as people install this, they go, well, nothing's happening now. And the reason for that is because after they opt in or after they use the page or even the contact form, they have that little message that comes up by default in the little green text that says, thanks so much for getting in contact with us. A member of our team will be in touch with you shortly. That is wasting massive amounts of opportunity. the way that I kind of equate this is, if someone wants to buy from a bit, they go into a shop and they want to buy something, it's the equivalent of putting it on the till or the checkout counter, saying, look, I'm clearly interested in buying this. I'm stood by it. Here I am. And the till assistant stood there in front of you going, cool, awesome. All right, well, let me know if you want to buy it. And you're like, oh, yeah, I've brought it to the till because I want to pay for it. Fantastic. Well, anytime you're ready to buy it, just let me know. And you're like, I'm literally stood here with the thing ready to buy it. And they're like, that's awesome, man. Well, one of our team will get in touch. Can you imagine how infuriating that would be? What you are constantly looking for throughout this process is motivated buyers. You want people who are willing to take that next step. And yes, it's a fraction of a percent, okay? But what we're going to do is take them to a specific page. And this specific page is going to make an offer to them straight away. Currently, our average order value of $1,000 or whatever it was is happening anyway. Your team or the team on the website are currently making sales and it's happening anyway. What my job is to do is to help you do, and your job is to help your customers do, is to increase the average order value. It also is to increase the frequency, and that's not just the number of times, but also the speed at which someone buys. Instead of redirecting them or not redirecting them and saying, oh, thank you so much, we're going to redirect them to what is essentially a sales page. This is for all of them as well. Say, thank you so much for signing up with us. Massively appreciate it. Your download is on its way, or a member of our team will get in touch with us. We've got some free training here. Just click the button and it will take you through the training. And this is where you can then make a sale. This literal page here, often referred to as a thank you page, allowed me to sell my first agency because we basically just installed this on a ton of websites. Everyone was like, what the hell is this guy doing? And what the hell is his team doing? It was because of this thank you page. Most businesses have got a product in the range of £50, £20, £10, £100, something that's not a huge amount of money, but enough for people to get out their wallet and want to buy from it. A really, really simple example of this would be if you're working with like a landscape garden company and you say, what I want you to do is the pop-up says something like, here's our top 5 landscape design ideas for 2020, really simple. And they come through and they go, thanks so much, that's on its way, please watch this free video on the top design trends of 2020. They click and they play it. And what you do is use that position to pitch to them and say, how would you like it if we came around and showed you exactly what your garden could look like? It's a one-off payment of £197. It's a one-off payment of £500. It's a one-off payment of 20 quid. And that is something for service businesses. If your products or the website you're selling is something more physical, for example, we worked with one company that was like a plumbing supplies company a while back. Paul will know all about this. And the pop-up on opt-in was about the top 5, or something to do with the top 5 reasons that houses get damp, which is nothing that I knew anything about, but they said that's the number one problem this particular like plumber experiences. And then what they offered on the thank you page was like a really cheap, it was kind of like a sock filled with balls, like really tiny little gelatin balls, and it prevents damp. And they said, we've got these for $12.99, just put in your card details and we'll send you 2 of them, or something like that. If you can increase the speed at which someone buys, you are more likely to make a sale. It's really, really simple. So this here is essentially a sales page straight away. When they click buy, what I want to do is then when they come to the checkout page to buy, we've all seen these and they work. And again, this type of system can be done with something like Gravity Forms. That's what we used to build it with. It can be done with plugins like Upsell plugin, I think is the name of the plugin. It's very cheap and very affordable. PayPal can do this. If you wanted to go outside and make a slightly easier one, it's like Gumroad has got some opportunities to do this as well. When they come through to the checkout page, they've decided they want to buy. Great. What we're going to do is add one little thing called an order bump. Let's say, for the sake of argument, we've said to them, we can sell you this £49 training on. A friend of mine does dog training, right? Top 5 things you have to teach your dog before they turn 12 months old. As soon as you go through, it says, hey, fantastic. What I want to do is show you for £49, we've got a course on how to train your dog to stop. I think it was like to stop chewing furniture and stop jumping on the couch. And it was 49 quid. It was just a little online video course. when we then click through, this page here was an order bump, and we just increased the average order value. So again, we're focusing on this area here. We say for an extra, it could be an extra £100, it could be an extra £19. Amazon does this beautifully. Whenever you buy anything, they say, would you like Amazon Prime with this? And they add it as a little checkbox for like, what is it, 70 quid a year or something like that. Again, you're looking for motivated buyers. Yes, 97% or 98% of people won't buy this, fine. And again, on this one, yeah, 20% of people will buy it, or maybe 10% of people will buy it. That's irrelevant. That's not up to you. You're still helping people through the process and helping them through the journey. So when we add this one little extra order bump and we say, well, would you also like, you know, a one-on-one consultation call? It's an extra 100 quid. Click here and it increases the average order value. And all of these tiny little micro commitments that we're asking people to take increases the average order value and the frequency at which they buy. Because all of a sudden, whatever your previous system was doing was going, you know, twice a year or whatever. We're now just increasing it just ever so slightly across average, across broadly speaking averages. The final thing that I want to talk about, and by the way, actually, the conversion rate we talked about increasing the conversion rate of leads to customers from 5% to 6.25%, or whatever yours is, just increasing it by 25%. Someone is actually more likely to buy one of these and one of these immediately after opting in. The data suggests that if someone is motivated to buy, their interest level in buying is at its highest after they've opted in. Afterwards, all that happens is it tends to drop off. And then you have to do email marketing, and you have to do advertising, you have to do sales calls, you have to do pitches, and all of this to drive it back up. But actually, they were most likely to buy at this period right when they opted in, right when they gave you their contact information. If someone says, I'm interested in working with you, their interest doesn't grow over time. Their interest dwindles and drops over time. With the contact form that says, and people have stopped using these now because we've got, like, all got chat bots and stuff on our website from like Intercom and stuff, because people realize that you are more likely to buy. And the last little thing that I wanted to talk about really quickly, after they buy this, is something called a one-click upsell. And this is when you sell them another product. Some businesses go nuts and they have one-click upsell after one-click upsell after one-click upsell. Also called an OCU for one-click upsell. This is when you might try and 2x or 5x or 10x the product. And again, we've seen this work for translation companies, insurance businesses, universities, online learning, theme parks, plumbing supplies, beef jerky, a company that does beef jerky out in the States, timeshare rentals. There are ways and methods of being able to do this. What the one-click upsell is, and again, upsell plugins are a really easy plugin that does this. Gravity Forms can do this. It says, hey, thank you so much for buying this product, or, you know, this product and this product. Perhaps you would also like our premium VIP experience for £500. Just click this button and we'll charge your card immediately. You click the button, it says, great, we're going to charge you an extra 500 quid or 300 quid or whatever. You go, yep, that's fantastic. All of a sudden, you've gone from contact form and then someone getting in contact with them. You fill that on a Friday afternoon. You're probably not going to hear back to them from Monday at the earliest. 2, someone can opt in, get some information that helps them, provides value, goes through, buys something, buys a second product potentially and a third product potentially. We've increased their average order value. We've increased the frequency at which they sell. We've increased the likelihood of becoming a customer, and we've increased the likelihood of them becoming a lead. Cool. I'm pretty much done here. I'm really sorry if I've run super over or super late. My stopwatch stopped in the middle, so I will now gladly and openly take questions if people have any questions, because undoubtedly some of my maths was wrong.
Mike, thank you so much. So much in there. Obviously, a lot covered in a very, very short space of time. No worries in terms of time. We obviously consumed far too much of your time at the start of the night.
No, don't be silly. No, not at all.
But no, it was fantastic. Thank you very, very much for covering that. I think that, yes, there were a few questions in relation to some of the figures across this. It's such a big subject, isn't it? There's so much across this to cover that I think in such a short space of time, it's really hard to dive too deep, but I know you obviously you're incredibly active across various channels, sharing this information and enabling people to understand everything that you're talking about here.
The number one thing, like of all of this, the only thing I would really worry about is starting off by looking at the customer's website, diving into their analytics, spending a day just looking at those numbers and trying to figure out how many inquiries did they generate, how many customers, like individual customers, do they have like per year, how many sales they make, and what's their average order value. And when you know those 4 numbers, there's like a WordPress page system or a plugin that basically increases every single one of them relatively easily. And it's a fantastic add-on product to start selling to your customers as well, to be able to just go through this sort of stuff.
Absolutely. I think that the this issue of pop-ups that you were talking about there, I know I, for one, as for many, they drive me absolutely crazy. I can't stand them. But equally, I see on a daily basis the conversion rates that we see from them, and they do convert. And it's that knowing how to use them, I think, is the key.
Yeah, I've always said you don't get an opinion with marketing, because what works. It's actually irrelevant of whether you like it or not. I don't like it when I go on to like a lot of like TechCrunch is ludicrous now, because you go on there, first of all, it's like a cookies thing, then it's a pop-up, then it blocks off half the screen, and there's another advert at the top, and it drives me mental. I completely understand that drives traffic away, but there's a huge difference between that and saying to someone who's come to your website, if your customers are solicitors, plumbers, educators, consultants, whatever they do, and saying, hey, we've got this thing that might be quite useful for you, would you be interested? And they go, no. That's completely different. And the reality is, some of these opt-ins can convert, and if you could just start magically having 5% of people saying, I'm willing to hear from you more in the future, that's a game changer for so many businesses and makes your marketing more effective as well.
Absolutely.
Definitely, it's about timing, isn't it?
100%.
With all those things. It's funny, actually, you said about the I wrote one thing down as soon as you said it, which was the average order value. With a lot of the e-commerce websites that we look at, that so many people miss out on that low-hanging fruit, and it's such an easy win because they're always looking for new business rather than looking at their existing customers they've already got and how they can get them to spend more money. And it's just incredible, and it's such an easy thing. Regardless, it's very, very simple for any of the guys who are watching this to go and look at those basic numbers, what people aren't doing, and quite often they don't go following up. They're always looking for new customers rather than looking at what they've actually got and saying, actually, can I get these people to spend more money with me? And it is such an easy win for you or for us as web designers, developers, marketers, people building new websites. First thing to do, look at their analytics, and straight away you could do some really, really simple things with a new website that can bring some really good wins for people, which is going to, for you, it's only going to help you grow your agency. I would touch on Brita water filters because we did something with that as well, but it was, again, purely work because what I do. And we did that with a client who sold 500 Brita taps throughout 12 months. Not once did they have an email going out to anyone or a pop-up saying, do you want to buy a water filter to go with it? We did 2 simple things. One, added it to the order as an order bump, and 2, set up an automation so that it sent those customers an email every 6 months to remind them to buy a new one. It generated 20 grand in the first year, extra revenue on cartridges that sell for 35 quid. A very, very simple thing that they hadn't even thought of.
And it's... Anyway. And the thing is as well, and this is where it gets frustrating for me, is that there are so many businesses out there who, to give them credit, most of them build good software, but they tell the customer, you need to spend $297 a month with us to get this kind of functionality in it. I'm like, we were doing this with like WooCommerce and Gravity Forms like a decade ago. Why is your platform any different or any special, more special? So like if you've got the site already, it seems crazy that you just wouldn't want to kind of pull these 4 levers.
I mean, I think the something that struck me, you're touching on Amazon and looking at Amazon as a model and what they're doing across there. It's things like the purchase process. It's reducing friction, isn't it? Reducing that barrier to entry. You make a payment and you're on the success page before the payment's even gone through.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And again, all of that stuff is saying, yeah, the really old sales joke is that this guy starts at like a new sporting goods warehouse, and the manager says, look, you have to make a sale in your first day, otherwise you're fired. That's just how we work. We're on commission. He comes back to them at the end of the day and he says, how many sales do you make? And he went, I only made one sale. He goes, one sale? That's not good enough. Get out. He's like, what did you sell? He said, I sold them this boat. It's like, how did you sell them the boat? And he goes, well, he came in, he said he was looking for like some 99p fishing lures. I go, okay, great, I'll take you over to the fishing lures. If you want the fishing lures, you're probably looking for a new rod, right? Because it's coming into winter, so you want to do some sea fishing. It's like, yeah, that's great. You want to do some sea fishing, you're trying to get away from the family, you probably want one of these coolers, right? Bit by bit, I upsold him and ended up selling him this boat. That process happens. It doesn't happen for every customer, and you have to be willing to accept that 99.9% of people won't do that journey. But for the one white whale that wants to go through that entire process within the space of what? An hour? I'd be more than happy to put this kind of automation on my website.
Yeah. Absolutely. Lewis has actually asked a question that, at the core of this is, where do you get good traffic from? I've seen businesses spend over $250 per customer.
Yeah,
that's starting the journey, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. You guys got another 3 or 4 hours for me to answer this question. There's two places at the moment in my very broad experience of social media. Social media is no longer kind of a community platform. It's an advertising platform. If you get good at advertising on Facebook and get good at advertising on Google, you'll find some incredibly cheap and really affordable traffic. It doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen. We attract customers. Well, we attract customers in the region of around $15 to $16 it takes us to get a customer. What it used to cost us, way more, and that's just from Facebook. And the other side is, if you do long tail keyword research into what the website's niche is, you can again, it doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen. You can get some incredibly high quality targeted traffic. And yes, the numbers might be lower, but if you can be extremely valuable to a smaller number of people, that's more important than trying to appeal to a broad range. And a lot of businesses now are just focusing on long tail keyword research because they know that that's where the quality of the traffic is. And just as Paul said, once they're a customer, there's no reason why they won't be a customer again and again and again and again and again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, big fish in a small pond.
100%. Yeah.
Mike, there's been a ton of questions, and I'm looking at the chat, and there's all sorts of things coming through on the chat there. And I'd love to be able to bring all of those up, but this would be a very long conversation, I think, because there is so much across this, and it is such an important subject. But unfortunately, we are running out of time. But are you going to be able to join us?
100%. Yeah, I'm going to be right with you guys now.
Fantastic. Okay, so for all of those that are asking questions at the moment, then maybe we can continue those conversations on after the second session. But Mike, I want to say a huge thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and spend it with us. And
thank you, Mike.
I love the fact that we had no slides here.
How about it?
It's just it feels like that slightly more interactive type session. So thank you very much for giving your time.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Cheers, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, if I can press the right buttons, Mike will speak soon. I'm now going to invite both Leo and Howard onto the stage. There we go. And Howard. Oh, no. Yeah, we're both hitting the same buttons.
Everyone's pressing buttons. Dad's back.
Hey.
Leo's saying,
we missed you.
Step away from the buttons, Dan. Daddy's home.
I'm not touching.
That's it. No, it's fine. It's fine. I haven't had my ears blasted out like that for a month. Thank you, Diane. I don't need to get them re-waxed.
Oh, now I am starting to get paranoid. I'll tell you in the social after, but I was chastised on the streets of London today for being, a public nuisance.
Was this by your husband or by somebody else?
What did you do?
Howard, thank you so much for joining us in this session. This is a bit of a random start.
Yeah, but I want to hear Diane what she did. I'm curious now.
We're in a bit of an unusual situation here because our second session is us. We don't necessarily have another speaker, although Howard, thank you very much for joining us tonight to have this conversation. So this is a roundtable discussion in relation to virtual events within the WordPress space. So we wanted to, let's get that up on screen. There we go. We wanted to have this discussion. Obviously, it's been several months now of us delivering WPLDN as a virtual event, as so many other events have been. We wanted to also introduce a little bit of interactivity around this. So if you are on live.bigorangeheart.org right now, please do let us know if you're interested in coming and joining us on stage live tonight. What we will do is we will drop you in the DM within the chat on live.bigorangeheart.org a link to enable you to come and join us in this chat, on stage, sorry. You don't have to turn your camera on if you want to, keep some privacy and not share your background. Feel free. Just you can just turn your audio on. We just want to hear from you, the community, about your experiences of virtual events. The good, the bad, the ugly, and just really get a feel of, what what's been happening. What has worked for you, what hasn't worked for you, and just your opinions really around the concept of virtual events. So I'm opening that up to you now. If you're interested in getting involved, then let us know in the chat. Do comment and say, yes, stick your hand up. I'm happy to come on board. Be aware that you will be streamed out to not only live.bigorangeheart.org, but also out to our social platforms. So let's jump in to actually starting the conversation. I want to say a big thank you to Howard for being with us this evening. We have been delivering events within WPLDN in this format for some time now, and I appreciate, Howard, you've also you're having some experience across the delivery and obviously also participating in virtual events. So Howard, do you just want to very quickly give an introduction to yourself?
Yeah, I suppose so. I must. I'm Howard. Some of you might know me from, I don't know, when we did WordPress London last year. So I was the organizer there, and I do come to WP London events, when we were meeting in person, but I think I've also attended a few online ones. And yeah, I'm just glad to be here. I'm also helping out with WordFest, which I'm excited about. But yeah, just thought I'd hop on and chat about virtual events.
Excellent. So just to kick things off, a general question here. How have our experiences of virtual events been?
Mixed, I think. I know that when we started, we kind of did the same as a lot of people, where we just used Zoom because we had to pivot very quickly. And I think we found quite early on that Zoom was very limited. And now look, we've got this really fancy pants setup. But I'm quite surprised that I've been to a few online conferences, and I'm quite surprised at the number that still are in that Zoom format. And I said I wasn't going to be mean and I wasn't going to mention any names. But I have found that is limited. I think Zoom is good for what it is, and that's for meetings, but it's not a conference platform. And I do think that, we've been in this sort of like virtual delivery space for a long time now. So I'm quite surprised that there are still people delivering conferences on Zoom.
It's the right tool, isn't it? It's about finding the right tool for the job.
I think that's it. I mean, Zoom won a lot of the marketplace for two reasons. One, it's an exceptional product for a meeting. And every single business meeting, when I then don't use Zoom and I use some others, you realize how good Zoom has been in that respect. But it never was built as a presentation production platform. And I think if I use an analogy that comes from some of the other parts of my life. It's like arguing that you have everybody on stage, and you don't want to sit there in the theatre and have every single member of the audience on stage with you. And that's what Zoom does. But I think the key thing is, are we getting more out of online meetups? Are we getting more out of the ability to be able to visit anybody in the world and hear what they have than we were of in place? And then in reverse, what have we lost from in place? So what do we get more out of this in online?
I think definitely the interaction of having people from all over the world. Look at WPLDN. Where a year ago we would have been in a venue in London. I know we're virtual now, but we've had people tonight from all over, including the US and elsewhere, and we do on a regular basis. And that for me has been a real plus with the events. Yes, I miss the interaction, and the personal side of the other side of it, but the having people from all over has been fantastic. It's great.
Yeah. And also being able to go all over. Sorry,
say again.
Sorry, Hannah.
No, I was just going to say, and also being able to go all over as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Like you said, loads of people coming here, but also you could pick any event that you would have wanted to go and maybe either couldn't afford to go or for whatever reason. And now it's like, oh, wow, it's accessible and I can actually attend it. So, yeah.
That's right.
That's another thing.
Absolutely.
Sorry,
if we look at our numbers, we've seen individuals from 96 different territories join our meetup now. 96 global territories. It's really quite incredible when we start looking at the reach that people are coming, the distance that people are coming from. This issue of creating a more inclusive and accessible event is a huge benefit in relation to the delivery of virtual events.
We've also had international speakers. It's been really nice to be able to say to people wherever in the world you are, you can speak at our event. All you have to do is have an internet connection, and you can speak at WordPress London. And as Dan said, it's made it accessible for people that for whatever reason can't physically turn up. So that's been a real gain as well. That it does make it more inclusive and more accessible for a lot of people that couldn't attend physically.
Yeah.
So we've got our first person to join us, and hopefully all going well. Mike is going to join us now. Hello, Mike.
Mike, welcome.
Introduce yourself, please.
Hello, I'm Mike. I work. I'm the WordPress platform lead for Crystal Hosting, and I've attended a few of these WordPress London virtual events. I haven't yet made it to a physical one, unfortunately. It's just an interesting time with all these virtual events.
How do you find the ability to be able to connect without the need to travel, but still being able to connect with the community?
Yeah, it's brilliant. I mean, as somebody who likes travel, I like connecting in person with other people. It does take a bit of adapting to, though. Like the connection is slightly different, I find, in a virtual event compared to a physical event. But the flip side is it's so much more accessible to people from all around the world, which is fantastic.
I think that's it. And it's not just about joining people from around the world. It's that reverse of the fact that you can join things that happen somewhere else.
Yeah.
And if there is something that you really want to find out about, that maybe it's just too niche for the area that we are, WordPress is a niche, but there's a niches of a niches, and finding that around the world is great. I think that's where the online has worked.
Yeah, for sure. It was interesting when I attended WordCamp Europe virtually, and I went to the physical event in 2019. And it was interesting to see this. I mean, considering it was organised with a month's notice, pretty much, in terms of deciding to go from a physical event to a virtual event that way around. It was amazing how well they did making it not feel like a Zoom call. And I mean, it wasn't on a platform perhaps quite as sophisticated as the one we're talking on, but I was really impressed with the way they tried to implement all the different elements the best they could in the time they had available to them.
I think we do need to recognise the work that the WordCamp Europe team did in an incredible short space of time. It was a fantastic event, given the circumstances. But of course, we're further on down the road now in that journey of the delivery of these style of events, and I think we touched on this already. This issue of the continuation of using tools like Zoom, tools that maybe
It was a difficult process for us to get to this point, though. There were, there was definite growing pains for. But you know what they say about difficult births, apparently, it's sort of like it makes you love them more or something. I don't know.
Before we let Mike go, Mike, do you know how many events on this sort of platform do you think you've actually ended up watching in the last 9 months?
Virtually all the WordPress London events on this particular platform.
By platform, sorry, I meant on not just this platform. But I mean, how many virtually?
Yeah, tens, hundreds, a lot. It feels like, I feel like across all the different virtual events I've been to, and it's really interesting to see how different each platform is that's been devised by different people and different companies. Tens, 50, 60. It's felt very intense, but also, I mean, it's intense because just to expand a bit, it's intense because you feel like you're looking at a screen 8-9 hours a day at work, and then if I'm going to an event in the evening, you're looking at a screen again for another 2-3 hours, and it goes back to what I was saying about a virtual event feeling from a connection point of view quite different, looking at people through a screen. But
Mike,
yes,
we're gonna have to. The nice thing is we've got the one thing that you can do in this, which you can't do anywhere else. We can boot you out.
Absolutely.
So we're going to say goodbye to you, Mike, and others are joining us. I know it's great.
Personal, Mike.
It's nothing personal, but keep talking, Mike.
See you in the social, Mike.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up.
We are having a fantastic response here. I just want to make people aware that we are limited to 10 people, and we've got several people waiting in the queue right now. So if you are messaging us, we will do our best to get you on. We will share a link with you. If you're not able to get in, then we will continue to try. So please do keep trying to join us.
So then next up on the screen, because the camera's on, is Dave. I think we've got Dave. They're very pixelated.
Dave, welcome.
Hello, I'm on my mobile, so that's might be why.
Okay.
Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
No worries. I missed most of the talks.
2 seconds for everybody, who you are, where you're from, and your involvement in WordPress, just to let people know.
I am Dave Natris. I'm a freelance web developer. I live in London, and I don't do a lot of WordPress development, but I am just working on a site at the moment. So I thought I would come and check out what's going on in the world of WordPress.
Cool.
And the question we've been asking is, for everybody, is this world that we've been in this last 9 months, whether, could this be the new normal? How many sort of conferences and things like this have you been doing, and what's your highlight and what's your downside of this?
I haven't done too many, but I as well as being a web developer, I also, back in normal days, I used to do these kind of lights and sound at comedy shows, and obviously those haven't been happening very much, although there was a bit of them happening in September, October, but certainly earlier in the year they weren't. And what happened when comedy was, a lot of shows became like this. They went into this kind of virtual format, and some were better than others. And one that did work well was where obviously the comedians were on screen, but they have a front row of the audience essentially who are also on camera, and they can flick those, just like a comedian would talk to someone in the front row and ask them some questions and make fun of them. they can do that virtually as well. So that actually worked quite well.
I think it raises a really interesting issue there. It's that interaction with the audience, and very disjointed in the environment that we're in right now. Obviously we're reading the live chat that's going on across the event, but there is a delay between what we're pushing out now and what's being read on the screen. So that issue of how do we continue that that engagement and interaction with the audience.
Yeah, I think I missed a bit of you there. I don't know if my connection went or yours did. That's obviously another issue of these things. There's always little technical glitches. Yeah, and then I suppose on the downside, I personally I'm not keen on.
Oh,
we've lost Dave.
Oh no!
Is he going to come back? No.
Dave, thank you so much for joining us. It looks like we've got a bit of a dodgy connection here, so we will just move on because we've got several other people. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Dave.
No problem.
I think the next two are sort of a double act in a funny way because they ran an event together. So I'm just bringing one on, and part of the same double act earlier this year and running an event. Just at the wrong time is Armstrong. Nathan, let's start with that. Let's start with you. Have you done many of these events this year, Nathan?
You mean participated or run?
Yeah. Tell everybody who you are and where you're from.
I'm Nathan Wrigley and I'm from Scarborough. And I run a podcast about WordPress, and every week we do something a bit like this. But it's nowhere near as elaborate or as professional.
I'm just here to make it look less professional. That's my job, so that everybody else doesn't feel bad.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. So we, Anshin, if she's there. Oh, please don't make me big like that. That's not good. Anshin and I ran a summit. Oh goodness! How long ago? Maybe two months ago.
October, yes.
Yes. Oh, hi, Anshin. Hello. All about page builders, and it was really illustrative. There was an awful lot to learn. I think my take personally is that there's a bit of fatigue of the format, not the requirement for human contact, and I don't mean personal, as in physical proximity. I think these events are magical. I just think the format is perhaps becoming a little bit of an impediment. And I know Leo and I have spent several mindless hours looking at all sorts of different ways of doing these events, including 8-bit kind of characters running around in something that looks like a castle. And you eventually end up in a room where you can chat with people and 3D representations of physical spaces and all that kind of stuff. And I don't really know what the answer is, but I sense that maybe we're kind of getting towards vaccines, so maybe it won't be a bit of a moot point anyway.
Talking about that, let's ask from the other side of the world and let her introduce herself a bit. So, Anshin.
Sorry, I'm on my iPad. I was already in bed listening, so I didn't plan to be on, but yeah, good to be here. I've always loved online events because being in South Africa, it was hard to go everywhere. I did love going to WordCamp Europe, but just hearing meeting people from all over the world, and so I've always loved virtual events, and I like the whole technology behind it and everything. But I have to say, I would love to have an in-person event at the moment. I'm really missing it. It's just so different, having a drink with people, and just missing that quite a bit.
There is this interesting question of, as we go back into a situation where we can come together and have these in-person events, are we going to miss our virtual events?
I think that we've gained a lot from the virtual events, and I would really like to see us be able to do something maybe a bit hybrid, because it would be, I so want to be, you know, back to physical events, because I do miss that sort of, you know, kind of human contact, that intimacy. But it would be a shame to lose the accessibility, the international element, you know. So I don't really know, you know, this is something I think that we have to discuss, but it would be really nice to keep elements of this and have all of the benefits of, you know, kind of having an in-person event, you know, if we can somehow take the best of both.
Dare
I'm
I
looking
say,
at you, Leo. I'm looking at you, Leo, to come up with the answer there.
Well, funny you should say that. I did an in-person international event, and with a remote guest. The international remote guest came in from Scarborough when I was down at WordPress Bristol.
yeah.
So,
it was just as bad.
it was pre all of this. So, but I think my take of this is that it's not black and white. It's not either or. And I guess it's exactly the same as arguing about TV is not radio. You can have both. And I would argue that probably when movies started, when DVDs started, etc., you were flooded with very good but also very bad versions, and eventually you've got to find the right good. And I think there has been some really good events, and it's also about, you know, and there's been some which haven't been as great, but even the ones that haven't been great, you learn where the problems work. And maybe you touched on it earlier, Diane. You know, Nathan and I both use this platform and others, and I know one of the guests that we've got coming up, none of us are going to be able to talk for long because he'll talk even more than the rest of us on different platforms. And it is about finding the right things. Anshul, I'm just trying to think. You've run 2 major conferences now online?
Yes. Yeah. So
and what's the difference between the one that you ran right at the beginning and the one with later, apart from the fact that you were hampered with the person you ran it with?
So the first one I ran on Hay Summit. So it was I didn't plan it long. It was a month and that I decided to do it. So I just used Hay Summit, which was an all-in-one platform. I couldn't customize a lot. I couldn't really do any sales funnels afterwards. But the summit bit was quite, you know, the emails were there. There was, you know, everything. So that was like in the box type of thing. And then the second one, we built it in WordPress. So everything was WordPress. We just did pre-recorded videos on pages. So there wasn't a lot of, you know, technology behind that, but used live chat role for live chat and things like that.
And without,
that's
a sex site. Sorry, Dan.
Leo, so what would be the biggest, if you were to say, you know, going to deliver another event similar to this, would you take on, you know, what would be the thing that you would share to anybody that's considering the delivery of a virtual event at this stage?
So definitely do the pre-recorded thing, because doing a big event like that live is just, I know a lot of people complain about it, but it really just doesn't make sense to do it live. It would be totally crazy. But having that live aspect, like the live chat, and if there's any other things like we've been looking at, you know, like the table thing that you have as well, those kind of things where networking can be a little bit better. That would be really nice, yes. But that would be the only thing. But yeah, pre-recorded, and I think
the pre-recorded you guys did though, and then having the speakers there available for chat while the talk is going on and after the talk, I think is a very good compromise. Specifically, as we know from a technical perspective, it's something I think to have it pre-recorded but still have the speaker there to be able to answer questions in a live format is very good.
We actually got a fair amount of feedback from the speakers, and that would broadly, that was a positive for them, because they could carry on with their normal life knowing that they had this thing that they needed to sort of dive into. An example would be like Troy Dean, who was on the opposite side of the world, and it was time for him to be a dad during that period, and so he could be a dad and drop into the comments and sort of listen to what people were saying and write a comment, and he just carry on with normal life, and it was really good. I think it's good.
Can I make one last question to both of you, and maybe also to Dan as well, as an organizer of a bigger event? Are you able to make these events bluntly profitable? Has it been cost effective, and have you made enough to cover the costs, etc., of running it?
So if I take that from the charity's perspective, then the answer is sure, yes. We've created a situation where it has enabled us to fundraise for the charity through the delivery of WordFest, and it's actually been a real positive for us because we've shifted the way that the charity is raising funds as opposed to the previous models that we've delivered. But yes, it's certainly, I appreciate it can be different if it's on a for-profit basis, but of course we're talking about this sustaining the charity, so it's been very beneficial for us.
Right, I've been waiting to do this for ages. I'm absolutely waiting to do this. So Nathan, what else do you have to add?
About what? Sorry.
What were you going to say?
We knew that was coming.
Oh dear. Nathan, go.
So much. Those of you who are watching and thinking we're just being rude, we are actually all very close friends. So thank you.
That's it.
Okay. Really appreciate you.
Anshin, thank you for your time in South Africa. I hope everything is going well out for you, and you've got summer coming, so the world's changing for you out there. So you're going to get out. We're going to say goodbye to you. I'm going to let you slowly disappear nicely, and we'll bring
Thank you, Anshin.
Good to see you.
Sam, we're going to invite you up on the stage. Sam, thank you very much for joining us this evening. I appreciate this is your first WPLDN and you happen to be on stage, so thank you very much.
You'll need to unmute yourself, Sam. You've a little button. That's it.
Got it.
You're done.
There we go.
Hi. Yeah, sorry. My little story, I guess, is sort of, it's not WordPress based, but on the theme of conferences. Virtual conferences. I went to it's called the ICCC, which is the International Conference on Computational Co-Creativity, which was in July, and featured about 80 people from around the world, States, India, Sydney, and UK, and it was based in Portugal. The conference itself took place over 6 different platforms at the same time. Over 3 days, which was kind of quite intense. So we were all using Slack, Zoom, Miro, Underline, and Discord. But the one standout, and this is sort of just basically juggling tabs and applications sort of every half hour, constantly. Every different aspect of the conference had a different app running. I'd say overall it was actually a success, but at the end, the one sort of standout platform that actually everyone wanted to be the main platform for the next year's conference, and this touches on something that Nathan was talking about earlier, actually, was GatherTown, which you may have heard of, but he was talking, that's the sort of 8-bit one that looks like you're playing Mario, and it's just as a platform, as a form of interaction, it was quite different to the others, but actually it really enabled a different level of social interaction. And it was my first experience with it, and I was kind of quite surprised and impressed that it could work at that scale.
Thank you for sharing that. It's a really interesting platform, GatherTown. If nobody's had taken a look at it, as you said, it is this 8-bit throwback to the kind of the 80s style gaming platforms. Really interesting solution. I think I question, is it the kind of the interactiveness? Is it the fact that you're...
I think it's the fact that it spatializes conversations. So in the sense that if you were in a room, you could speak to different people, but you can move around and you can overhear other conversations. You can choose, who you're... so that was something that was you're obviously not able to do with Zoom. it's kind of speaker focused.
I think it's great. The only problem I find is when I've ever used GatherTown, everybody seems to walk away from me.
Sam, do you think that the reason everybody liked it was just because it was like so different, and we're so used to this kind of format, this kind of sort of like webinar sort of like video format? Do you think it was just like the novelty value, or do you think that it actually added something?
I think it genuinely did add something. I mean, it clearly has a novelty factor to it, and it has this kind of very informal facade. But for the large groups of us, many of us didn't know each other at all, so the informality of it really helped. But really, it was the ability to move around and
there's another
not be
example
forced
I had
to
of
listen
that.
to one.
There's another example we had, Word Camp Atlanta, if I'm right. Austin, sorry, I knew it began with an A. They did a virtual reality similar thing. And I actually met a number of the people who actually WordPress London there. And it has that same, that spatial awareness that you can walk away from people and join a different conversation. Unfortunately, even in this, really, there's only one conversation happening, and it's very difficult to have a side conversation. And I think you're right. That's the bit that you go into a conference, you miss. And it's interesting to know that. Sam, you said there was a large number of people on that conference. How many was on that? How many on that?
There were 80 people in the conference.
Okay.
There were typically about 25 in GatherTown, which is its kind of free limit. But actually, that's the number that was
Did you
around
find
anyway.
that people stayed on GatherTown a long time? Because every time I've used it, the quirkiness of the 8-bit works for a while, and you forget about it, and you suddenly realize you've been on it for ages on a conversation.
Yeah. I think also another factor is that it has shared objects as well. So you can have shared objects in that environment, which might be videos that link to YouTube, or they might be games that people can play, or so on. As it was an academic conference, the one thing that people wanted were the ability to put up posters of their research. And in a real conference, obviously, I think that's a thing where people can walk around and sort of, choose what to discuss. So that was kind of quite key. And again, other platforms aren't quite set up for that.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Well, Sam, we do need to wrap up because we've got a number of individuals to come and join us. So thank you very much for joining us and sharing your story and experience of virtual events. Okay, I think we've got Tristan coming up next. Tristan, welcome.
Hi, Tristan.
Yes.
Hey. Hi, guys. Good to be here.
Thank you. We're good. Pleased to have you with us. We are rapidly running out of time, and we also do have another person to come and join us. So as much as this pains me to say, we are going to have to keep it fairly short.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Just going to throw a couple of things in quickly. I'm really surprised it's taken us long to get to that experiential, being able to move around an environment. Bearing in mind we've had Google doing that with virtual tour functionality around big attractions for a long time. So the functionality's been there. No one's seen putting the two things together, and trying to get that between physical and virtual. This morning I was in an event where I was actually an attendee on a screen brought in via Zoom, but it was being broadcast on a wall in a studio in a live environment that was being broadcast. So it was like being a live studio audience, but via video instead. So that kind of brought another element to it, which was quite interesting to be a part of.
I think that's very true. That whole idea that, we talk about hybrid is a word that we don't really know how we're going to do hybrid at the moment. But I cannot see that something like WordCamp in the future, in situ, whatever you want to call it, will not have an element of people joining it remotely. Why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't you WordCamp Europe have a big screen up on the wall and everything that's streamed in there? You're both on it and off it, and they'll go to occasional questions from people who are remote.
Well, it would allow all the different WordPress events to be inspired by one another as well, because the physical location would be a reason you might not have gone to another one. Now you could virtually attend it and just dip in and out just to get inspired. So
Brilliant.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you joining us, Tristan.
No worries.
Unfortunately,
Hold on,
That's fine.
hold on. I have to do this anyway. You know, just I'd like you to. Yeah, because I spent too long on the thing with
Leo. You know I'm going to be.
Sorry.
I think we need to wrest power away from Leo.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Who? Sorry.
Got Lewis.
Lewis. Lewis, welcome. Thank you.
Hi,
We're on.
Lewis.
We can't hear you. Can we hear you?
We can't
No,
hear you,
We
Lewis.
can't hear you.
We got no audio.
That's it. 2 minutes. He's got the
seconds.
wrong. Mike Cogwheel at the bottom.
Absolutely. Yes. And speaking of,
While we're just doing that, how you were involved with us, or you were involved. You're doing a hell of a lot more than I was of running in-person situ WordPress London the WordCamp London last time we had one. Do you see that? How would you bring in the virtual in if you were running it both real and virtual? What would you do to bring virtual into it?
I think I like that idea about streaming people in to have that on a big screen that they then come into. I also think in terms of like thinking about it on the sponsors side of things, is having them be able to do something, offer something virtually for people to be able to do. I think that's another, whether it's a game or just some event that they run. I think there was a session that was run that they did something with, now I'm going back to my yarn crafty days. And yeah, I think it was Yoast or someone did something like that, where they had something running, some competition, or will teach you how to crochet or knit or something like that. So I do see like bringing elements of the virtual in via that studio feel. So I am participating as part of an audience as an attendee. I think that would be awesome. And then, yeah, like who was it Tristan was saying earlier about different WordCamps being able to be inspired by other ones, because you've seen certain things that other people do and you're like, oh wow, that's interesting, and I'd like to be able to do that. Like, who was it that had the jamming session recently, or they had people doing some jamming sessions? I can't remember. It was an event that had that.
I know there was a jamming session at WordCamp London a couple of years ago, wasn't there? But but I don't know.
No, there was. Maybe it wasn't a WordPress one. Yeah, I know we've had that discussions, but yeah, I don't think it was about. I have seen something during this time. During lockdown 1.0, I did see something. So, yeah.
we had
it's so long ago, doesn't it?
We had the WP Jam hashtag, which was floating around. We'd see going around WordCamps, encouraging people to come together and have those sessions together.
I think my takeaway, as we said, is that we've learnt a lot of new things, and some of this will stick. Some of this really will stick. We're hoping that Lewis, we can hear Lewis now. Let's see if we can hear him now.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
No, we can't hear you, Lewis.
No. Unfortunately, Lewis has run out of time.
That's all right, mate. I was just going to say, so I've been actually doing remote stuff for quite some time because I've worked remotely for quite a few years, and I'll run a few sort of Zoom calls, which they're not as polished as this then, but also attended quite a few. IndieWeb has got really good Zoom game, and they've got like breakout rooms. They were where I found out about that feature from. They use Etherpad for collaborative editing. And there's a tool called Sococo that I used many years ago, and you actually get put into a virtual space. You can lock doors and stuff. You can put on presentations on boards. It's not as good as in person because it's on a computer, but there's a lot of tech out there other than the big players that we've all been talking about. This is fantastic. And I did want to say earlier, if you need help with that plugin, like you do so much for the community, I would love to see if I can help you to bring that to the WordPress.
Yeah. Thank you. Really appreciate that, and really appreciate you taking the time to come and join us this evening. And thank you for holding on through the technical issues there. Unfortunately,
thank you, Lewis.
Completely run out of time.
We have. This has been great.
Yeah. Howard, did you have something you just wanted to?
Yeah, when you just said something about virtual, I just had an idea because I think it was at Bristol. It was one of the after events I went into, but it was the virtual reality. There's a pub with virtual reality room, so that would be awesome. I think to be able to like have a WordCamp virtual reality booth thing to just walk into and interact with people. So yeah, I think that would be quite nice.
Absolutely. So now I'm going to shoehorn it in. I should have probably shoehorned this in multiple times through this conversation, but we are, as we mentioned at the start, we have launched WordFest on wordfest.live. This is a virtual conference that's going to happen it's happening on the 22nd of January 2021. It's a 24-hour event. We are covering a global, it is a global event covering multiple regions as we travel through the globe. So please do join us if you can. We would love to have you part of this. We have now unfortunately closed our call for speakers. We've had a phenomenal response to our call for speakers. We are currently looking at, do we potentially bring in an additional track so we can deliver more content into the day, because we are looking at the content that we've got. We just simply haven't got enough space as it is right now. If you are interested in getting involved in any way, shape or form, then please do visit wordfest.live. And we've got one last fancy pants video, which we have had this evening, but I'm going to hit that play button one last time. There we go. Finally shoehorned it in. Sorry, Diane?
I was going to say, if nothing else this year, I have brought the word fancy pants into the WordPress community. So,
that is going to be the word for January. Fancy pants. Taking that into 2021.
Fantastic. Okay, we're just going to really quickly wrap up. I just want to say a big thank you to all our sponsors, and please help us to thank them if you can. big.ht/thanks. The opportunity to provide feedback is always welcome. If you're on live.bigorangeheart.org, there is a link at the top of the page that says feedback. If you are out on social, big.ht/feedback, we'd really appreciate it. It does enable us to continue to evolve and adapt and iterate this platform. We have a new version of this platform, which you will be seeing in 2021. Very excited to be able to deliver that to you. Our next event will incredibly be in 2021 on the 28th of January, the next WPLDN. This is the last WPLDN of 2020. This will actually be a week after WordFest. So between now and the next WPLDN, we have got WordFest.live. So please do join us, as I've mentioned, on WordFest.live. If you are on WordFest, too many words. If you're on live.bigorangeheart.org right now, please come and join us over in the social. We're going to continue some conversations. I think there's some really good stuff around the virtual events that we were just discussing, as well as some of the topics, the sales topics that Mike was sharing with us. Really interested to continue that conversation. If you have enjoyed any of this tonight, then please do consider, if you have the ability, to donate into Big Orange Heart, big.ht/give or bigorangeheart.org/donate. Every single penny makes a difference. I'm going to mention it just one last time because I don't think I've mentioned it enough times this evening. wordfest.live. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you.
See you in the social.
A huge thank you to Mike, to Howard, Diane, Paul, and Leo. Really grateful for you all being with us this evening. And of course, thank you to everybody that was part of it. I think that interactive session was an interesting way to go.
I just need a big boot, don't you? Just like.
That's on the new platform, isn't it, Leo?
passionate about making the web a better place. Automatic.com. Your managed cloud hosting platform. Cloudways.com. Generate more leads for your digital agency. Funnelpacks.com. The WordPress multilingual plugin. Weglot.com. Tips, tricks and resources for people who use WordPress. WinningWP.com. The search engine optimization plugin for WordPress. Yoast.com.